This is one of those difficult or maybe even scary kind of lessons to give. If you've ever done any teaching and you understand what James tells you in chapter 3, you bear some responsibility for what comes out of your mouth. But I've also learned that God has a tendency to test you if you really believe what you just said. So I can't avoid the subject because it has come at me from 4 different directions in the last 10 days. It's like God put that nice flashing sign up. I mean, how many times did Peter have his vision? It was 3, wasn't it? This has come at me 4 times, so I thought I need to pay attention. And it's kind of scary, I guess. But I don't know if you've ever had that experience where the same thing comes at you multiple times from multiple ways. But makes you a little nervous. So it's been on my heart, it's been on my mind. The first time was, I guess, Sunday night, basically, when Jesse gave his lesson and the emphasis on, the value of today. That hits real deep with me anyway because my brain is forever in the future, whether that's 10 days or 10 years, okay? It's kind of to a fault. So Lena keeps me very grounded because she is only in today and doesn't care anything about tomorrow. And I feel like, we wouldn't get through tomorrow if somebody didn't think about it today. So she kind of keeps me grounded on that. But, it was his lesson that brought that back up. And I was born and raised in Nashville, and so I got some roots with, the culture there. And somewhere around 2001, there was a song that was called One More Day. And the point of that song is really to teach a person maybe what the value of one day is. If you had one more day with that person that's no longer with you. Or if you're the rich man, in the case of rich man and Lazarus, who might have wished that he'd had one more day himself to go back and talk to those brothers of his that he was hoping that Father Abraham would send Lazarus to talk to. Right? So there's 2 ways to look at that value. If you're already gone or if you, missed the one that's gone. But there's 2 sides there to look at. And hey, they're hypotheticals, right? I mean, that's not going to be something that ever happens. But those questions are intended, right, to kind of illustrate the value of today. So the question I'll give you is, what is now worth? The second time that it came at me was actually that's not the second time. I guess it's the 4th time. It's the second one I'm going to tell you about. It came at me today. Katie asked me a question about her lesson in passing. It was talking about, what would a man give in exchange for his soul, And, I thought, well, there's a value there of the soul. We're going through all this stuff right now with the 1 Samuel with Saul and everything. And you might remember, but chapter 11 and 13, there were people that were kind of resisting Saul becoming king. Well, who is he, right? Almost like no good thing comes out of Nazareth. They weren't willing to follow him. They didn't really want him. And after he had a big success, the other people were like, hey, where are those guys at now that were criticizing Saul? Let's put them to death. And Saul said, no, there won't be any of that because today the Lord has wrought salvation in Israel. Well, you can't even get to chapter 14 before that same exact thing comes up when Jonathan does the little shenanigan that he does. And at the end of the day, all the people are exhausted. It was a big, messy day. That's coming into this week, this week's lesson. So it still hasn't come yet, but it's still it hit me this week. But it was the same thing there. They're like, well, we're not going to put Jonathan to death because, today the Lord wrought salvation in Israel. And, you take the value of the soul and you take the value of today and you put them in a jar and you shake them up and you come out with 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 2, right? Which is what? Today is the day of salvation, right? Now, right? So what's the value of today? You put those verses together, you could say the value of today is your soul. That's the value of today. What would you give in exchange for your soul? Today, right? Now is the time, right? Today is the day. And, you say value, and a lot of times you try to say, is that a monetary value that you can put on your soul? And I would say not. I would say that the value of your soul is the blood of Christ, the Son of God, right? That's the value of your soul. Why does that price need to be paid? In my own life, it's the dumb stuff that I know better than to do that I still do, which is what makes this lesson dangerous, because I'm fully and completely aware, Today is the day. I have no promise of tomorrow. I have no promise I'll make it to my pillow tonight. And I know that. I know that. And despite that evident fact, I find myself still being silly, like sometimes Israel would just be immediately forgetful, and we sit there and we read it and it's like, how can they be so dumb? Look at what God's done for them. Samuel did it. He cleared his name in front of the assembly, right? And he said, I've never done anything wrong to you. Here's the history of what God's done for you. All you got to do is be faithful. That's all you got to do. And I heard somebody respond to that back there. It seems so simple when you're looking at Israel and you're reading it in black and white. But when I wake up in the morning and I start off frustrated and Murphy, we talk about Murphy a lot, is on my back, it makes my day complicated and difficult. And then when you're angry, it just compounds from there, right? But what is the value of your soul? What would you give in exchange for your soul? If you were gone today, would you get, want that one more day? Truth is, you might want it, but hey, you don't need it because you have the now. And that's really all that I wanted to share with you, right? Because the price has been paid. And the value of your soul in God's eyes is the life of His Son. That's the value of your soul. And if you want that exchange, today is the day of salvation. Whatever your need is, please come while we stand while we sing.